Hello everybody, Matt here again. Today we're looking at another pedal mod on yet another freaking Boss pedal, the Boss Super Phaser PH-2. So this thing is actually surprisingly super easy to mod, even though the stuff that, there's like a second LED, two toggle switches, seems like it's probably kind of complicated, but it's really not. Today we're going to be looking at how I did essentially all of this, and my point in making this video was when I first got this one, I got it in a trade and I wanted to do some stuff to it, but I wasn't quite sure what specifically. So I scoured the internet, literally nothing. It wasn't until I Googled Boss PH-2 mods and then, hit like literally the 10th or 11th page on Google just out of sheer boredom before I finally found an article presenting it. It's not a secure website, but blogspot.com years ago was like the thing for everyone to just post cool stuff on. So there's actually a guy that posted like all of the mods that this is essentially like where I got it. So my point in making this video is to put this forward so that more people will want to do this. This is such a simple, easy mod. Now, you don't have to do everything, but every single mod that we're gonna look at today, there's about 4 of them. They're all super simple to do. So let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start with the easy stuff. So let's talk about changing out the LED, okay? So the first thing that you're going to want to do obviously is unscrew the back of the phaser pedal, and then you can lift back the circuit board, you can see it. Now up underneath there is another PCB with another screw on the inside all the way at the top next to where the power supply goes in. That's where the LED's at. So if you unscrew that, pull that out, you can look at the old LED. So what you want to be very careful to do is when you're looking at the PCB with the LED on it, take note of which way the flag inside the bulb is pointing. Usually it's pointing towards the orange wire, so if it's doing that, after you remove it, make sure whatever new LED you put in that place, the flag is facing towards the orange wire. The polarity matters a lot with that stuff. So I went ahead and went with a green LED for mine because, well, it's a green pedal. So just make sure you get a 3mm green LED, and then boom, there it is. Just goes right back in after you solder it. Where it goes, it just fits right back in there. Now, if you have another one, if you have one of these that's old and it has the ACA adapter only, meaning you can only use the 12-volt power supply, whatever, then there are 2 simple things you need to do. First, you need to locate diode 5 and resistor 9, D5R9. They're circled right here. So what you're going to want to do once you've found those, you're going to want to remove those parts, and you can just take like an old resistor, clip the ends off of it, and just solder those in that place. If you do that, you take D5R9 out, put those resistor end pieces in or something, and just solder. That's it. You leave all that in there and it'll look like this when you're done, and then you can use your Boss pedal with a standard 9-volt power supply. Pretty awesome stuff. Let's talk about the output gain mod. The Boss Super Phaser, like most Boss pedals, has a bit of a volume drop when you hit the effect. So to correct this, there's one resistor, it's this one right here, resistor 79. If that one is stock 27k ohms. So essentially, if you drop the value in that, it will raise your volume. The output gain mod calls to replace this with a 15k resistor, which that would actually give you a volume boost. But I didn't really want a boost when I used the phaser. I just wanted it to, be a phaser on my signal. So I swapped that for a 22k resistor, and that was perfect. That literally brought it completely even with the clean tone. So if you want a volume boost, swap for 15k. If you just want it to be even with your tone, swap for 22. One final little logistical thing before we get into the technicalities of these toggle switches and stuff. If you want to drill into your enclosure to put one of these in, you're going to need to make sure you drill a 1/4-inch hole. And this is a single pull, single throw switch. So that's another thing I should mention as well. You want to make sure you have a single pull, single throw switch. Basically on type thing. You want it to go 2, not 3 specific places. I actually had like an old Boss compressor that I just removed the potentiometers on, and they actually fit. The width was perfect, so I just put those in there so that I could drill through the faceplate for the new LED, as well as positioning for the new toggle switches in there, which is really useful. You want to make sure that where you put those toggle switches is not in the way of the potentiometer assembly, because it's not going to fit. So we'll talk about this LED here real quick. Before I actually get into the specifics of the mod, you have to drill a specific hole. I can't remember the measurement off the top of my head, so I'll just put it right there. You have to drill that size hole for this LED, and when you do it, you want to be really specific about how you mount it in there, because if you don't, I just used a little bit of super glue around the edge and pushed it through, and it worked fine. But when you drill the faceplate, you're going to want to have something holding these potentiometers in place. because you got to drill through the faceplate and the enclosure for that LED, so it's kind of tricky. So make sure that, you know, those potentiometers I mentioned earlier, there's a cool picture of it. That is a great way of making that happen. So let's start by talking about the LFO Disable Mod. What this does is so sick. It turns the phaser into like a filtered EQ, or you can turn a humbucker sound into a single coil pickup sound. So the LFO Disable Mod is really, really simple. Here's a picture of it right there from this Blogspot thing. You simply just wire jumpers to pins 14 and 16. You're gonna run those to the toggle switch. You're gonna wire 14 to the middle, 16 to the outside, and then that's it. Wire your toggle switch up. Now you can disable the LFO and then have an awesome filtered EQ. So that's this one right here. This doesn't actually affect that LED. That is this toggle here, which we're fixing to get into, but this is the LFO disable. It's on here and it's off there. So pretty awesome stuff. Now we're going to talk about the LFO Pulsar Mod. Now this is where this LED comes into play and this toggle switch on the side. What this is going to do is essentially you wire more jumpers and you're going to be able to have a rate LED blink, and there's going to be a pulse in the sound of the phaser. So you get a phased sound with a pulse. It's really, really wicked. But this is a little complicated, so I'll try and keep it as simple as I can. These yellow and red wires, the yellow one is going to number 12, the red one's going to 13. All that you're gonna do is you're gonna solder one wire to pin number 12, another wire to pin number 13. Wire from pin 13 is gonna go to the center of this single pole, single throw toggle. Then what you're gonna wanna do is from the switch, you're gonna run a wire on the outer pin to the cathode of the LED. The cathode is the short leg. That's very important that you do it that way. So the switch, you're gonna run that to the cathode of the LED. From the anode of the LED, the long leg, you're gonna solder that to the wire that's going from pin number 12. So we've got number 12 and 13. 12 is going to the anode of LED, cathode of LED is going to switch, middle of switch is going to pin 13. That's your LFO Pulsar Mod. On the enclosure, this is where the rate pot usually goes, so I drilled a hole up there so that that will sit directly above the rate pot.